All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I am trapped in my pantry recording another podcast. And, I always like to say about the show that I'm talking to Manitoba musicians and Manitoba adjacent musicians. And I use that adjacent thing to sort of encompass anyone who is from here or has lived here and is maybe living abroad right now, or they've moved to a completely different country or they're working somewhere else. Because I think that like if there's a Manitoba diaspora, I think it's quite huge. And there's a lot of people doing all kinds of creative stuff that have roots here or have connections here that are now, spread out worldwide. And the guest in this episode is pretty far away from Manitoba at the moment, but we can get into that in a second. I think the best way to start this off is if you want to just introduce yourself and maybe give a bit of background about what it is that you do musically.
Yeah, for sure. First, thank you, Sam, for having me on the show. My name is Tetyana, and I grew up in Winnipeg. I wasn't born in Winnipeg, but I grew up there. And in high school, I decided I want to pursue music. And so I did some university, did U of M, and I just finished my master's at Berklee College of Music in Valencia in Spain.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So now I'm just hanging around in Spain and, living the European life.
Yeah.
It's very, very different and it's interesting. So I'm sticking around for a while. But musically, my interest is jazz music, and I play drum set, but I really love writing music. And at this point in my life, I've been in school for so long that I think this is my first opportunity to explore the music that I truly want to write and the things that are in here. I want to
Yeah.
express some things. So I think this is like a new chapter in my life where I get to explore things.
Well, it's probably a cool place to be to do that, to have starting a new chapter in a country like that, which is, like you said, so radically different than what you would normally experience here. For sure.
Yeah, it's completely different.
So I've had a lot of over the course of doing this show, I've had all kinds of musicians on, genre, age, interest, whatever. It's a pretty mixed bag here in Manitoba, as you know. But you're a drummer, and I haven't actually talked to a lot of drummers. I've talked to a lot of bands where maybe there'll be a drummer as one of the four people on the show or whatever, but actually sitting down and talking about drums is not something that's really happened that often. So what was the draw for you? Because there's a lot of instruments that people get into when they're younger, and drums always seemed like, as someone who played in terrible bands as a teenager and in my early 20s, there's always was someone who had the drum set, and they had obviously spent more time and energy investing themselves in that instrument because of the size of it and the unwieldiness of it. And it's not like you can just take a guitar and carry it on your back. I mean, a drums kit is it's an investment of time and training and all of that. So what drew you to drums?
When I was 10 years old, it was like grade 5, right before grade 6, we had to pick band instruments. And I came home and I was talking to my dad, and he said, yeah, like if you don't know what to pick, maybe you should play drums. And he meant drum set, but I told him, like, no,
Right.
no, Dad, it's concert band. You can't play drum set in concert band. He's like, okay, well, then just do like percussion or whatever.
Yeah.
So and we had to audition. So I auditioned for percussion, and my dad started teaching me just some beats. Like, so I played with my hands on my knees, and
Oh, cool.
he gave me a bunch of challenges, and so I started doing that, and he saw that I was just instantly interested. Um, as a as a note, my dad just casually plays bass.
Oh, cool. Okay.
He really loves music, and yeah, music has always been a part of my life, and so that's how I started playing drums. Um, and throughout high school, I played drums, and then eventually I decided that wow, like I actually wanted to be an engineer,
Okay.
and thinking about it and going to some career symposiums and things like this, I really realized that I could not do a whole degree of engineering. So I decided to pursue music, and yeah, I mean, carrying drums is terrible, horrible. I actually don't have drums with me right now.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, I've been practicing on a practice pad for like 2 months. I just have my cymbals laying somewhere, and yeah, just practice pad and just listening. So it's
Yeah.
been different, but interesting.
Oh, I believe it for sure. One of the things about drums too is I think that a lot of people are under the misapprehension that drums are strictly just there to keep a basic rhythm, right? A lot of people just see it as it's a background instrument. It's there to keep time. Other than that, they don't want anything to do with it. What is it like kind of being creative on drums and using that as an expression for you?
Wow.
Because of maybe the stereotype, right, of drumming, a lot of people just don't think of it as something that necessarily has that range of expression that a piano or a guitar or a saxophone or something might have.
Absolutely. Drums is a very interesting instrument to me because it's a relatively new instrument. The drum set came together in like the early 1900s,
Mm-hmm.
and so uh, it's still a very very new instrument, something that you can explore and find different textures. And the thing with drums is textures. Like I really love brushes
Yeah,
um, and different different ways of playing each drum or each cymbal. There's so much nuance in everything, and it's very beautiful if you really get into that, and if you if you get out of the mindset of like this cymbal makes this sound, this drum makes this sound. If you just open your mind
yeah.
and let yourself explore, it's a very flexible instrument, and you can really get a lot out of it.
That's cool. I think that a lot of people know that to a certain extent too, but it's very easy to just write off drums. Unfortunately, I mean, because some of the there's so many great drummers in history and in so many genres that have really impacted the way popular music has gone forward. And I think a lot of the time it's an under-respected instrument, maybe in terms of its creativity and being able to do some lead type stuff. When everything else kind of gets, it's the guitar player, it's the singer, but yeah, drums are, as you know, obviously, right? Drums are
Yeah,
important. Yeah.
and it's very interesting that you say like pop music, maybe like throughout the years has
Yeah.
established some kind of role for the drum set, and that's an amazing role, and that's actually a very hard role. Um, and just I think just the ability to use four limbs at the same time is,
It's hard.
yeah, it's like,
It's
just this stuff. It's
totally, yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So what are you doing now? I mean, like you said, you don't have drums with you where you are right now in Spain. Have you been able to be creative while you're there? I mean, obviously you have to a certain extent, I mean, clearly, but how do you sort of is a practice pad enough for you, or do you like need to go out and seek out a drum kit somewhere to actually go full out on?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always looking for opportunities to play a drum set. So, like last week, I went to record some things in the studio, and I got to play a drum set, and
Yeah.
mess around with that, and that was also fun because, yeah, like you said, I since I don't have a drum set right now, I'm doing a lot of actually writing new things and um, really getting into Logic, and I
Okay.
have a MIDI keyboard, and I'm just you know composing right into Logic. And so I brought a bunch of these demos into the studio and got some friends, and we just recorded some things. So that was fun. So yeah,
Cool.
I'm trying to seek out, opportunities to play drums any chance I get, uh, to supplement the practice pad, but also writing and
Yeah.
yeah, exploring music softwares.
Cool. Cool. Is that a different? Do you feel like you need to kind of split your brain to a different section of the brain to deal with that stuff rather than playing, a hands-on physical instrument, or is it similar kind of uh, brain is the wrong word, but you know what I mean? Is it a similar mindset to creating music on a computer program versus the physical hands-on aspect of it?
That's a very interesting question, actually. I've never thought about it, but I think it's the same.
Yeah.
I think it's yeah, it's just the mode, you know.
Yeah, I guess the basics of it are still there, regardless of what. Yeah. Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
When you were when you first got into playing drums and you first realized that was sort of your passion, what type of music were you influenced by? Like, what were you sort of aspiring to do as a musician when you first really locked onto drums?
Uh, so when I was 10, I really liked AC/DC.
Okay.
So that type of music is what I wanted to play.
I think a 10
Uh,
year old could probably play every AC/DC song on drums too, because they're
that's
pretty
true.
straightforward, right?
It was like the entrance, the
Yeah,
barrier to
yeah,
entrance was very low, so that was fun.
yeah.
Uh, but then, yeah, when I started playing, I was really into just straight ahead jazz and bebop and
Yeah.
those types of things. And then in university, I got to play with big band a lot, so I really enjoyed that. I still really love big band, and I would love to do that again. Um, and now, actually, it's shifting a little bit. It's very interesting. I don't know where I'm going, but it's interesting because now I'm discovering soundscape and I'm
Hmm.
discovering film music and um, maybe more music that reacts to it creates a scene or something like that, rather than yeah. So I'm not sure, but jazz is I think my launching point.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that maybe this is a weird question, but do you think that the type of music you're describing, like cinematic music and soundscapes and things, is that maybe more deliberately created rather than jazz, which is more impulsive and more improvisational and more kind of in the moment? Is that maybe the difference between the two?
It's a very interesting question. Um, I think when you compose film music, for example,
Yeah.
you have time. You have the time to make decisions, and you have the chance to revise your decisions. Um, but with improvisation in jazz music, for example, you have to trust your gut,
Yeah.
and it's a very vulnerable feeling. And it's interesting how you can be comfortable feeling vulnerable in jazz improvisation, but you can also be comfortable being vulnerable intentionally.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
think that might be even more scary
Yeah.
because you're making the conscious decision to, okay, yes, this is what's happening. It's
Yeah.
not like you can't just say, hey, yeah, it was a solo.
Well, yeah. There's an actual direction that things are heading with an end point and a start point in the middle. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's scary. I don't know. Vulnerability. Wow, that's a
Is it difficult to shift from that jazz mindset of being able to be in that moment and be improvisational and everything to then focusing on something that is more written and is more kind of laid out deliberately?
mm,
Or do you feel you can kind of switch back and forth pretty easily?
I, I think the way that I think about composition is very much the same as how I think about improvisation.
Okay.
So a lot of the time, uh, like the seeds of the ideas for a composition will arrive fairly quickly,
Okay.
and then I just have to take the time to sit down and decide what I want to do with these seeds, how I want to grow them.
Yeah.
Um, and the beautiful thing about composition is you have that opportunity to grow the seeds and take the time and plan it out. And with jazz, you have a seed and you kind of just go with it, whatever you have in the moment, which is
Yeah.
also super cool.
Yeah.
But
Definitely. Definitely.
very similar, very similar.
What is your plan sort of going forward now? I mean, you're over there. You're not you're not in Winnipeg. I guess you're going to probably stay there for a while. What is your plan as a musician? Like, do you have? Are you hoping to play shows out there? Are you hoping to? I know you've been doing some recording. What's sort of the goal now that school is finally behind you, and you can focus on the actual being a musician part of being a musician without having the studies involved at the same time.
I think my goals are uh, to finish up some other projects. First, to release the project that I'm working on
Yeah.
right now, which is a suite. So I would like to release that fairly soon, mid October,
Okay.
and and I have some other things already written. This other project is already recorded actually, so I just have to do some work on that.
Okay.
And yeah, I just have a lot of things I want to record. So I think that's the direction I'm heading in, and yeah, live shows as well. And I just have to find a nice situation for a good place to live, but also to play shows. I think that's the balance that I'm looking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah,
It's
that makes a lot of sense to you.
yeah.
Has this, the situation that everyone's been in over the past year and a half or more with the pandemic, have you been, how has that affected you? I mean, I know you're in another country right now. I don't know what the situation is like over there, but have you been able to I guess the question I'm getting to is I've talked to a lot of people on the show during this time, and it seems like it's one or the other. People have either been extremely creative and have used the time to their advantage and just come up with like endless amounts of music, or they've been completely blocked and they feel like they can't because they can't perform live because they can't often play with other people. They've just been kind of shut down. What has your experience been throughout the pandemic?
So in March, when everything started, I was still in Winnipeg,
Okay,
and I yeah, I decided that I was going to write every day. So I was as an exercise, I was writing every day, and I was practicing a lot. So from March till September, I was doing that, and it was okay.
yeah,
And then I think the best decision that I could have made in a pandemic was to go do a master's degree, because it was the perfect time to do it. You know,
there's no
throughout the
distractions, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah, it was a little bit sad during the year because there's a lot of amazing people in my master's degree, and we wanted to hang out, but
yeah,
sometimes we couldn't. But it was a very good choice because, like you said, yeah, there's less distractions. There are less opportunities as well, but I
true.
think it was a good investment. And yeah, like you said, I mean, it's a mind game, and if you can win the mind game of,
Yeah,
okay, we're in this situation, how can I make the best of it? Then I think I think you can do it. So I tried to win the
okay.
mind game, and I tried to do things that I knew would benefit me. So yeah.
Did the music for the suite that you're hoping to release in October, was that already written prior to the pandemic, or is that a project that you've worked on throughout this time?
No, so that was actually my thesis for my
Okay, okay,
master's. So I started writing it in November, and from about November till the end of April, I want
okay.
to say, it went through many different iterations and many rewrites. And yeah, I basically had at the end, I had three suites that
Oh
I
wow,
wrote, choosing different movements and everything. There's a lot of music material. And
I
then I
bet, yeah.
decided, like, okay, this and this, and okay, this doesn't fit together, so I have to write one more thing here. So it was a long process of trying to put that together. But it was all done from November, and then we recorded in
Okay,
May
okay.
28th. Yeah,
So that's a good use of that time for sure. Get
yeah,
all that done, definitely, yeah, yeah. So one of the things that when you sent me some music to check out, which I loved it, by the way. I was really really excited about you releasing this because it's great. But you mentioned that it's meant to be listened to, obviously since this is a suite, I guess, as one large piece of music rather than kind of being cut up piecemeal. And I think that you have the benefit of jazz being one of the few genres where that's almost still okay because we live in this weird world where the way music's consumed, right? It's all in such short sound bites, and people are used to things being on shuffle and randomized. I guess maybe the question there is do you think that people are going to be willing to give you the time to your project to absorb it all as a single piece, or do you think that we're all too short attention spans now that people are going to sit there and skip around? And does that affect sort of the way that you feel about the overall piece of music if you know that probably someone's going to be sitting there grabbing a piece from here and a piece from there and maybe not in the order you intended?
wow, yeah, that's a heavy question.
Yeah, it is. It's
Yeah,
late at
no,
night. That's when
thank
the
you.
heavy questions come, right?
Yeah, yeah. uh, I think uh, I think music should be written through a uh, music should be written from a very genuine place, and this music is written from a very genuine place. And I think if if one person has the capacity to listen to the whole thing, I think I think I'll be very happy.
Yeah,
And if maybe one person um, is happy that they took the time to listen to it, and they enjoyed it, and they don't feel like they wasted their time,
Yeah.
I think I'm happy. And yeah, I mean, some of the pieces they for sure work by themselves. So it's like structured as six things. So
Yeah.
there's three interludes and three interludes and three movements, and you can definitely listen to it separately. But I feel like the cool thing is with this suite is it starts off very gentle, um, very natural, and
Yeah.
then as the suite progresses, it gets to this more more harsh sound quality,
Yeah.
some heavier, like lots of rhythm and lots of layers. So I think the beauty is in the development. It's not necessarily in the individual parts. And I think that's the beautiful thing about any album is the development,
Sure.
and like it's not fun, like instant gratification. That's not, you know, like the dopamine hit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
Well, and I guess
more
there's certain
interesting.
certain art that's made for that, though, right? I mean, and this obviously isn't. There's certain art that it's going to be 2 minutes long, and it's going to be something disposable and brain candy, and just kind of then move on to the next, right? But yeah, obviously the amount of work and the connections between the different movements in there and everything, that's something that should be taken in as a whole.
Yeah, which I mean, brain candy is also uh super cool.
Sure, yeah, it can
You
be.
know,
There's a time and place for it. Yeah, yeah,
I love brain candy. When I'm tired, I definitely don't want to listen to something like that. Like the sweet. I'm like, no, 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 no.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so I think maybe there's a time and a place for it, and
yeah.
if people find the time and place, that's amazing.
How are you how are you planning on releasing this? Is it going to be a digital only thing? Are you going to do physical copies? And the
Uh,
reason I ask is for two reasons. Number one, I'm a huge nerd for physical media, so I always want to know if people are doing it because I want to get a copy. And the more of an actual question is jazz is also seemed to me in other interviews with jazz musicians, one of those genres that still CDs are still a viable format. I think country is another one, but they're really getting it's disappearing, unfortunately. But what were your plans? What has your experience been? I guess what do you feel is a good way to make this available so it'll reach the best audience?
yeah, that's a great question. Absolutely, CDs and jazz are still very good, and they do sell.
Yeah,
I was researching both CDs, and I wanted to make a few copies of vinyl, but
so
it's too
expensive.
bad. Yeah, you have to make at least 1,000 to have a kind of a nice price, and
Yeah.
that's a lot of vinyl. Like I can't give my parents 1,000 copies of the same album.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, most people I know have boxes of CDs they couldn't even get rid of, right? But no matter who they are. So yeah, I think that's one of the problems. You pay a lot of money and then you have it sitting in a basement forever. But
Yeah.
it would be cool for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, for now, I think I'm gonna release it digitally only, and then maybe think about releasing it as CD.
Cool.
Um, yeah,
It's good to hear. I'm always happy when I hear that there's people who are still doing CDs because as people who listen to the show know, I'm just like I kind of hoard physical media in terms of like CDs and tapes and records and stuff. So it's always this whole era has been depressing with Spotify and everything else. So yeah,
yeah,
that's good.
it's
That's good to hear.
boring. It's boring to
It
just
is, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well, and I mean, especially with something like what you're doing too, because one of my favorite ways to listen to music is put on something that I fully intend to listen to, start to finish. Sit down, look at the liner notes, get all the information I need about who's playing on it, who produced it, where it was recorded, all that statistical stuff that a lot of people really don't care about anymore. But I feel like having that in front of you sort of is part of the experience, especially when you're taking in something that's not brain candy, that it's this longer, more involved project, I guess.
yeah, absolutely. It's interesting you mentioned that, like having all the credits and everything, and maybe some explanation,
Hmm.
like on a CD cover or somewhere, is super helpful, and it adds to the experience, I feel.
Yeah,
It kind of
definitely. Well,
provides you
and sorry, go ahead.
context.
Sorry, I
Yeah,
didn't mean to interrupt.
provides you context.
I was gonna say, yeah, for jazz especially, I have a lot of old jazz records, and the whole back will be this essay written by, whether it's another musician or a critic or someone else, and it goes into like great detail about the concepts and about the themes and everything. And I think maybe that's that helps with that with instrumental music, right? I mean, with primarily instrumental music. I know there's jazz vocalists too, but it's typically an instrumental genre, and it's not as obvious, I guess. You can make you can make feelings and emotions out of the music, but it's not um, straight up written out like something with lyrics. I mean, if you have a song and someone's singing about how sad they are because their dog died, you know that's what the song's about, right? Whereas you could be doing the same thing instrumentally, and maybe the feeling's still there, but the actual context of what is causing that feeling isn't necessarily there.
Yes.
And that's not a question, I guess. Go ahead.
But
Yeah.
no, no, but that's amazing because instrumental music is beautiful in that way
Sure.
where you have an intention, uh, but the beautiful thing is someone listening uh, will have a different, completely different. It's kind of like it's like projection. It's
Mhm.
like whatever you're listening to, that's how you're gonna whatever's bothering you at that moment, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, this person was feeling it too, or something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it filters through their own experiences, right? And
Yeah, you make it into whatever you want.
yeah,
So it is another filter of like creating meaning with
yeah.
a piece of art.
Uh,
It's an interesting thing.
I like that because yeah, something with lyrics is so much more direct about what it means and what the feelings are about. But yeah, you're right. Instrumental music can be filtered in all kinds of crazy directions depending on what the person is, what they've gone through and what they're feeling. Yeah, yeah. One
Yeah.
thing you said a few minutes ago about how it's coming, this music you've made is coming from a genuine place. That's interestingly a concept that comes up a lot on this show with talking about Manitoba and talking about the music community here. And there seems to be, and this is something that I just keep thinking all the time, and other people have agreed with me. I'm not sure what your take will be, but is that Manitobans in general, whether it's jazz or hip hop or punk rock or country, whatever it is, they have a very high bullshit detector. And the idea, if you, there seems to be a very immediate nope if something is not honest and not genuine, not actually coming from the artists themselves. And I think that's why Winnipeg and Manitoba in general has had so many, really unique artists kind of break out on the national, international scale, rather than just people doing the same thing that's popular. I think it's because that honesty and that genuineness is something that's sought after here. And I don't know if that's the same everywhere or if it's something specific to Winnipeg, but I definitely feel it in any genre of music I'm listening to locally, is that the audience can see right through someone faking that there's something else.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way. And it's interesting because um I mean, I know way more about maybe like jazz musicians and jazz scene in Manitoba
Mhm.
than other styles of music. And it's interesting to see that actually a lot of Manitoba musicians, um, they're all over the place.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like a lot of jazz musicians from Manitoba, they go to New York. A lot of people, for example, that for a while they were going to Michigan.
Mhm.
Um, there are people in Spain. Like I was talking to Curtis Noasad, and he was telling
Okay.
me of a trumpet player in Madrid. So you know, there are musicians in France, for example, from Manitoba.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy how there's something in the water, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. 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 And like it seems like obviously all these people go elsewhere, but yeah, there's whatever they drank here, I guess, is it propelled them on forwards. Like, do you feel that way too, that just growing up within the jazz community here in Winnipeg, is that like sort of furthered you in the direction that you wanted to go?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the fact that the U of M is in Winnipeg is very helpful
Yeah.
for jazz musicians. You could always, there's a lot of things and whatever, but um, there's like pros and cons to any school, and just in general, like music. A university is not the place you should be learning music, but that's
Yeah.
besides the point. But there are a lot of amazing professors, like throughout my life that have pushed me and influenced me. Mm, someone like John Gordon.
Yeah. Well, I just
He
interviewed recently, actually. He'll be on an
yeah,
episode a few before you. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, perfect. Um, yeah, and he released his new album.
Great.
Yeah, So someone like him, I'm very appreciative of, and I really I'm thankful to him for everything he's taught me, and
Yeah,
the fact that he's been pushing me, and you know, still I'm not a student anymore, but still he's pushing me and
that's
helping
cool.
me, and yeah. So I think that's something special about Manitoba.
That's yeah. I think that that kind of is in line with almost every other jazz musician from Manitoba I've interviewed over the years for sure. Is that that idea of it being more of a community than just kind of a music scene? It's everyone, people. I guess also small scene means people all work together and you all get to know each other and you get to bounce ideas off each other and everything too. So that probably helps as well.
Absolutely.
So if people are hearing about you for the first time on this podcast, what's the best way? How would you introduce them to your music? Like where should they go online to hear stuff you've done or now or in the future?
I think, um, I mean, Instagram. I still have to get into my social media
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I'm not a huge fan, but I'm trying to work on a way where I can incorporate that. And
Well, maybe that's just to pause on that original question for a second. I think that that's not an uncommon thing for musicians to have because we're in this weird era now where you have to be not only the creative person, but you have to do the marketing and the business stuff and all of this promotion stuff that, in previous eras, it wasn't available to everyone. So people would, you get someone else to do it for you. Right. And now everyone is expected to be their own publicist and things like that. So, I mean, it's hard, right? You can ace the creative stuff. And then it's like, how do I do this whole other skill set? Like, have you struggled with that at all? Like just trying to wrap your brain around how do I make myself like, known.
yeah, I mean, that's not my goal, but like to make myself known. But
For people to hear your stuff, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah,
but just to share things. Yeah, it's weird because I don't want to, I don't know. It just feels weird sometimes to
yeah,
me. I'm trying to figure it out. But yeah, like Instagram, I think I have links to like my website or something, which will lead you to SoundCloud
awesome,
and Bandcamp, and then the new release will be on Spotify and Apple Music and everything. So I think if you go to Instagram and then you go to the website, it'll have everything.
cool. And then you're thinking, you hoping for mid-October for the new release?
I'm hoping, yes. That's
Cool.
I have to figure out. So now I have to figure out like all my materials, some videos,
Yeah,
some things, and tell a story.
yeah. Well, I'm
I'm
excited. I'm excited for when that comes out because I think that from what I've heard, like people are going to dig it. I like what you said earlier about kind of the way it moves from soft and gentle to something more aggressive and abrasive, and that type of stuff, especially when it comes to jazz. The more weird it is for me as someone who comes from punk rock and things like that, and to discover jazz like when in my 30s, I've always been drawn to the more out stuff. So whenever I hear something that's and like just mentioning John Gordon, the first track on his new CD is very much like a free improvisation, and that right away hooked me into his record. And I think that yeah, having that kind of like noisy, uh, almost discordant kind of weird stuff is definitely cool. So that again wasn't a question, but yeah, just I dig that stuff, and I'm looking forward to other people hearing your release.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Sam, for saying that.
Yeah, thanks again for doing this. I know it's a ridiculous hour of the morning over there, but I'm glad
It's okay.
we could connect.
Now I'm fully awake, so it's all good.
Awesome.